Well, hey folks, it's your old pal Baron Harkonnen here, and welcome back to Total Party Skills. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. This is a rare, totally non-gaming related video here, albeit I've done a couple of videos about the Dune role-playing game, so I feel I'm just going to go ahead and say I just got finished watching the Dune movie by Gerard Depardieu starring Kylo Ren, and it was a movie. Technically better than David Lynch's Dune from the 80s in terms of the craft of filming, and it basically met my expectations. I kind of knew going in that, Denis Villeneuve's movies are intelligent, very well shot, very gorgeous, and also very slow-paced and boring. I feel if he could just like ratchet down his editing just a little bit, it'd hit a sweet spot. But because there's a part of me that misses older style movies that'll actually give you some breathing room to take in some scenery from time to time, and not just be these constant, frantic running down exploding hallways while making quips, as all entertainment has become nowadays. But there's limits. You don't want to go too far in the other direction and spend half your movie with like long, slow, loving shots of a bull's head on a wall. For an attempt to take more time to tell the Dune story, I do like that. They'll use fluff from the actual books, even if it is kind of redundant. Hell, the ornithopter chase over the desert. Stop, talk, fight. Ornithopter chase through the desert. Instead of just having ornithopter chase through the desert, meet the Fremen, but, they didn't do crap like, Peter Jackson did in The Two Towers, where Aragorn's falling off cliffs and having weird side adventures that were never supposed to happen in Osgiliath and all that kind of shit. It didn't intrude a bunch of material that was just the writers thinking they're just going to add new scenes. I still would have hoped that this might have been a Dune movie that actually started with the scene that the book starts with. I don't know why you can't just open off with it's raining on Caladan and a witch shows up to interview Paul. They always have to put some shit in front of that. I admire that they didn't blow their wad all at once and we didn't get to see the Emperor. They didn't show us Fade Rotha. Never saw Hasimir Fenring. There's still things to be discovered, and the fact that there was this coincidental delay that happened between the filming of the first one and whenever the second one's going to get made and done, you might actually have an appropriate age gap for Paul, because there was a point where midway through the book he leaps ahead 4 years in age and all this stuff has happened, so that will allow for that. To all the people 2 years ago who were all like, oh my god, we're being white genocided by Black Lady playing Liet Kynes, as I said at the time, shut the fuck up. I personally, my wish for what when Dune was first announced it was going to be made, my hopes was that they would have had Chadwick Boseman play Duncan Idaho, but for several obvious reasons that ended up not happening. The fact that they have Jason Momoa, and for a short-term sell that Duncan Idaho is a badass fighter, sure. But if they ever do manage to get to make a third Dune movie about the book Dune Messiah, and Duncan Idaho comes back as a Gola clone, trained as a Mentat, are we going to have to see and somehow buy into the idea that Jason Momoa can play a human computer? Or are they going to have to cast someone else entirely to pull that off? Also, when you actually understand the full arc of the novel series, is Jason Momoa really our main character? Is he really the best pick? I'd say no. He's whatever. I know he has his fans, but I could have done with less Khal Dargo fucking Aquaman shit. The Harkonnens, is it really so hard to act? Both movies, David Lynch's and this, both kind of fail on the Harkonnens. In a weird way, it's the one thing that low-budget sci-fi miniseries did well, where the Baron Harkonnen was just a fat dude who happened to like lads. What's wrong with that? No, it's got to be either some dude with pustulent faces and weird S&M stuff going on, or it's this weird, overweight, Marlon Brando from Apocalypse Now mixed with a Marilyn Manson video thing going on. You know, it's easy to write monsters to be monstrous. It's harder to write actual human beings to be monstrous. So, like, I'm not necessarily impressed. There wasn't enough of Baron Harkonnen in this movie to really be able to say, oh, Stellan Skarsgård was great. Who the fuck knows if he is good or not? We saw him for all of like 2 or 3 minutes. We saw more of Piter to fucking Vries, and we saw the Baron, and there really wasn't much of that either. I mean, for a movie that dragged on this long, I feel like we should have had a bit more time, you know, with Gede Prime and the Baron's end of the storyline to kind of anchor some of that. I imagine for first-time viewers who've never read the books or never saw the original movies or the miniseries, that, you know, maybe the fact that they don't make a big deal out of Dr. Yueh being the traitor ahead of time might, like, you know, make it be a surprise. I kind of feel that since they don't really linger on him too much, like, I don't know, didn't really feel like it really felt all that impactful. It would have been more impactful if Gurney Halleck had been the traitor or something, because he actually had spent more time with the character and to some degree. And honestly, like, Josh Brolin's performance there, at times I really felt like John Lovitz was in the room with him, because, you know, just the power of acting, kind of a vibe sometimes when he was delivering his lines. The sound score, like, it was screaming banshee, bagpipe, wailing women, starship sounds. You know, it was like, it sounded like Skrillex had fallen asleep on his soundboard and just submitted that as the score. It was just this mash of noise. I watched it on HBO Max, and the idea that we're so like, oh, it's filmed for IMAX. Like, I don't want to have anything to do with that noise in a movie theater setting. Good fucking God. The voice effects, speaking of sound effects, the voice effects sound cool, but they're also not all that different from what David Lynch was doing, which is also like making the Harkonnens into literal monsters. It's like the voice is supposed to be subtle, but, you know, I guess it's harder to communicate that to your average mundane audience, which is always the kind of the preposterous thing about this whole idea that they're going to make Dune into you know, some sort of like hot next Star Wars movie franchise, like, because kids are going to want to play with these drab-colored action figures and reenact Paul stabbing a black guy at the end of the movie. You know, like, for all the things of like the trying to defend this film for not being a white savior film, the fact that, like, the big end scene is Paul killing a black dude, I don't know if that was like really. Clearly, it was made, you know, before the events of the year 2020, and so, yeah. Do I recommend it? Sure. If you're a Dune person, you will want to see this. No way to judge if a person who's never seen Dune before would like it or not. I kind of more understand Rebecca Ferguson's kind of, like, weird reaction she had to, like, you know, people in interviews talking about what a strong character Jessica is, considering that apparently she never, like, got very far into the book at all when they try to give it to her, and that she only knows really the screenplay for the first movie, and she spends half of that crying in hallways. Yeah, from her point of view, maybe she is kind of like, why do they keep telling me I'm such a strong woman? All I'm doing is crying in fucking hallways. So congratulations. They got greenlit for a second one. You know, as I say, like, you know, at least it'll make the age gap work. If this movie had only been the one movie, what a horrible, horrible theatrical experience that would have been to have ended that and to never have had any conclusion. Ironically, Oscar Isaacs, despite just playing a third-tier character in the Star Wars movies that everyone hates, he actually was one of the better performers in that. The girl who played Leah Kynes was pretty damn good. You know, young Kylo Ren wasn't bad either. Spider-Man's girlfriend was there for a few minutes at the end, and she, you know, looked like Spider-Man's girlfriend and delivered her lines clearly. I don't know what else you're looking for. It's hard to even say if I was disappointed. Like, I did not allow my expectations to get really high. So like I said, in many ways it matched my expectations, but my expectations were not, peak. I will say that I did not have the same feeling I had the first time I saw the Fellowship of the Ring, where you're like, there's a few little things they changed, but fuck it. This is so much more accurate than any of us deserve. I'm willing to put up with it. I did not get this feeling with this movie. It's good special effects. Is that like an accomplishment anymore nowadays? Javier Bardem was cool for the few minutes you see him at the end. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have hope in anything anymore. Life is meaningless. Thanks to Dune by Gerard Depardieu. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. Leave me a comment below telling me what a Titanic asshole for having the opinions I have. No doubt they're shallow. And stay waspinated.